Hey everybody, people over at the Corrections Unfiltered. I want to thank everybody, our subscribers and people who are potentially, I hope, are going to subscribe to joining our podcast. We really enjoyed the opportunities that we've had over the last few months of trying to get a perspective out or our opinions out. It was really important to us, though, is knowing what you'd like. So please, in the comments section, let us know what you want to talk about, or if you'd even like to join us on a podcast, let us know, because there's a whole bunch of different subjects that we have planned to come up in the next few weeks, and if we can fit yours in and get you on it, we'd love to do that also. Today, though, I wanted to talk about another cliche. I was talking with some people not too long ago, and this one came up. And they said, they were so fortunate that when they start out in corrections, they didn't sweat the small stuff. And I said, what do you mean by that? And I know what they meant, but I just wanted to hear their side of it. And they said, well, where I worked at, we were so busy dealing with fights, assaults on staff, disruptive behavior, things going on, contraband introductions, inmates being high and stuff like that. We didn't have time to worry about that small stuff. So let's think about it. Now, I know I heard the same thing when I first came into corrections. I heard it, and it made sense to me. I'm thinking, okay, you're right. If I'm so busy tied up doing these things, I'm obviously not able to take care of these other things. But as time went on, and I was involved, unfortunately, in many, many incidents, some were very big, my facility was. And I had a chance to go back and take a look at the perspective. What I was able to find was that it was all small stuff that allowed the big stuff to happen. If you went back and really examined it, and I ask you, go online here and see if you can't pull up some of the different riots, the Attica riot, the Santa Fe riot, other riots or hostage situations like the one that took place in Arizona, other hostage situations that you can dig up online. And I want you to take a look at what really led to the incident being able to evolve to the level that it did. And what you're going to find is that big incident started out on a foundation of little things that were allowed to happen. Now, I have heard it many times. I probably advocated it when I first started out in corrections. But like I said, as time went on and I had a chance to research more, I realized, what a failed thing that was actually asking people to do. So I decided, I need to come out myself and I need to make sure that I am not allowing those things to happen. So let's just talk about a few of those things. Well, one, why does small stuff matter? Like some people will say, well, when I'm making my rounds in the cell house, what do I care if the guy has the towel hanging off the top bars of the top tier? What do I care if the guy has a window, or guy or female inmate has something covering their window because they said they're using the restroom? Or why do I care if I'm in the hallway and the inmates are designated to walk at a certain place or even on a sidewalk on the outside, and the inmates, they're not walking on the sidewalk or they're not following the rules and things of that nature? Why do I care if our policies say that an inmate is supposed to wear a shirt when he's out outside recreation? Why do I care if the guy just takes his shirt off? He's just trying to get a good workout in. See, that's the small stuff that we're not supposed to sweat. I want to unravel that for a little while. Now let's take a look at it. When you have identifying things going on in a facility that might be considered small, not covering a window, not having up a clothesline, doing those things like that, what you're doing is you're establishing a culture of discipline and respect. Discipline and respect. The inmates have a handbook. The inmates know what's in the handbook. They're taught what's in the handbook. They have the handbook available to them, whether it's on paper, on a tablet, or whatever. So they know what the rules are. Now, I will agree. The vast majority of inmates, they pretty much follow the handbook because they don't want you involved in their business any more than that you already have to be. They know that you have to be involved. They don't want you involved any more than that. So they're probably going to follow along with most of the rules. However, there is another group of inmates who's absolutely going to challenge you and see what they can get away with. If you allow those things to happen, what you're signaling is that you will allow rules to be broken. Now, to some inmates, they'll say, well, they allow a rule here or there. But there's other inmates that will say, well, if they allow that rule to be broken, let's just see what other rules can be broken. And they continue to go down this path of seeing how far can they take it. And before you know it, it's no longer they're going to have a clothesline. Now they're going to have their light covered. Now they're going to have their vents covered. Now they're going to have their windows covered. They're going to have their back window, if they have a window on the back side of the cell, that window covered. And then their contraband, the graffiti, and everything else begins to build. Now I ask you, for those of you who just started out, you might be thinking, oh, he doesn't know. I ask you, watch over time. See how that goes. See the people who allow those little things to slide on by. Now, how do you hold them accountable? Well, first of all, we talk about establishing a rapport with the inmates. And you should do what you can to establish that rapport. Now, different personalities establish a rapport in different ways. You're going to go in, you're going to set the tone. That's why uniforms are so important. Our uniforms are squared away, our boots or shoes are shined or they're clean, and we're going to go into that area as a professional. And we're going to set the tone of professionalism. We're going to talk in a professional manner. We're not going to use profanities. We're not going to use condescending words or condescending comments towards the inmates. We're going to establish the fact that we are corrections professionals, and we're going to go in there and we're going to do our job. And we're going to do our duties to the fullest. We're going to let the inmates know, hey guys, I really can't tolerate that. Now, I've had several times where I've walked by an inmate, say, who's put something on their window, and I'll knock on the door and say, hey man, I got to check on you. And they let me have some expletives. I'm on the toilet, I'm getting dressed, you this, you that, and that type of thing. What I do is I make sure they're safe in that room. And then I give them a moment to collect themselves, and I let them know, hey, my responsibilities are to make sure that you're okay. My responsibility is to be able to go by this cell and look inside and know that you're okay. Covering the window, one, it's not abiding by the policy or procedures, it's in the handbook, and two, it jeopardizes your safety. Now, that inmate might struggle with you and might have a few dialogues they may want to have to try to convince you that next time you come by you shouldn't do that. But the other parts of the population are listening and they're saying, okay, well, that guy sounds to me like they're going to enforce those rules. You have to make sure that you are enforcing them and that you're being fair, firm, and consistent. So if you pass the next cell and they have it covered, you knock on it, and the individual will say, hey, I'm using the toilet, and you go by. Well, wait a minute. Last guy said you're there on the toilet, and you peeped that door open just so you can look inside quickly to make sure everything was okay. Then you waited at the door and had a dialogue. But this one, you walk by. That's where fair, firm, and consistent starts to fall apart. Because the inmate population determines or feels that you're not being fair, firm, or consistent. Establish that with the population. Now, I used to recommend, because it was taught to me, that those times when the inmates are like in the day room playing cards, dominoes, watching a show, you don't really, you have to pick out and know when to. You begin establishing that rapport then by talking with them and letting them know, hey guys, I ain't trying to pick on anybody, but today during count, I can't have anything on those windows. I need to be able to look inside, make sure I can get my count right, and I need to move on. Now, most of them are going to look and say, okay, whatever. However, there's going to be a few that say, I'm going to cover my window and see how far this goes. If you think you're going to have troubles with that, just make sure at that count time, maybe you've whispered into your supervisor's ear saying, hey, just want to let you know, I've been having problems with some of these cells covering windows, walked around before count, made sure people knew not to do it. If I have that issue, I might need your support up here. Give them the heads up. Let them know. But going back into the rules and things, if you start allowing them to do the cluttering of the cells, you're going to find they're really going to push it. They're really going to take it to another level. How do you think they conceal escapes? How do you think they conceal digging around the bars of the window or the framing of the window? How do you think they conceal moving their toilet and slowly chipping away at that to where they can get into it? If you look into the most recent news, you're going to see where those inmates down in that jail in New Orleans, how did they get out? They took apart the toilet area. And that's what happens. Why were they able to do that? I don't know. I'd love to go in there and see. But it probably led with small things that were supposed to be enforced not being enforced. Therefore, they decided not to. But it probably started with small things not being enforced that led to them being able to dismantle that area. Also, we're not just establishing, going around and enforcing the rules. It's also a matter of doing our jobs. For instance, security checks. Now, whatever facility you're at, based upon custody levels, policies, whatever, there's a certain period of time that you have to make your security checks. Make your security checks. It doesn't mean you walk down the tier and you don't turn your head and look in cells. It means that you take a look inside the cells. Now, I had a buddy of mine, he used to tell me what he did to make sure he looked in the cell was as he got to every cell, he either grabbed the handle if it had a handle, or he put his hand in a little opening where you would put your fingers to pull the cell door open. That forced him to pause that moment to look inside and be able to detect whether something was right or wrong in that cell. If something was covering the window so he couldn't look in, the door wasn't open, he'd knock on it real quick, say, CO coming in. And he'd open the door 3, 4, 5 inches, look inside, and take it from there. Let's talk about going inside the hallways and things. One of the most common rules that a facility will put in place, there's 2 of them, that staff members consider to be a small thing that shouldn't have to be enforced: tucking in the shirts. Right? Now, some uniform shirts are designed to be tucked in. Some uniform shirts are more difficult to be tucked in. But if the facility policy is that they are to tuck in their shirts, enforce the rule. What happens is staff say, I've got so much going on, I just don't have time to worry about that little rule. But what we're trying to do is establish discipline and respect. We're trying to show the population how you dress properly, how you move properly. It also gives us an identifier for those people who don't want to follow the rules, and maybe they get a little more attention. Maybe the ones that we stop and ask them, hey, why don't you tuck in your shirt? If that leads to something, maybe we have to do a pat search so we know whether or not they're concealing contraband, and so on down that line. I highly suggest that you talk with your supervisors and find out, what are their perspectives on this type of thing? How far do we go before maybe I need to get you notified so you can come down here and help me? Same thing. Let's talk about recreation yards. I've seen a variety of different rules on recreation yards. Some of them were extremely strict, but those were in your higher security facilities. And the thing about it was to identify if the inmates were going to follow the rules and be respectful. And if they started taking their shirts off when they're not supposed to, they started disrobing their clothing, they began taking out towels, cups, things that they're not supposed to have on the rec yard. We need to hold them accountable for that. We need to enforce those rules. Because what will end up happening is they pre-stage things. So we want to ensure that when we're on a recreation area, we're enforcing what can they bring, what do they have, that they leave with it, they stay properly dressed, they're abiding by the rules. The vast majority of the inmates, they want to go out to rec, they want to get outside, they want to engage in an activity, they want to meet with their fellow inmates, they want to do things. They want to make it a social hour. They don't want nothing to do with problems. However, there are others who do it differently, and we need to be ready for them. Let's take a look at chow halls. What are some of the things that chow halls establish that are small rules? Well, most of them will say inmates can't get up from one seat and move to another seat. Many times, though, we will see where staff members allow inmates to go from one seat to another, and one seat to another, and one seat to another, and one seat to another. Chances are you have multiple units at the chow hall, and now you're allowing these inmates to mingle and move around. And if your eyes are caught trying to catch Bobby as he goes from table 1 to 5 to 9 to 12, are you really paying attention to the rest of the population? Chow halls are a great opportunity for us to be able to observe inmate behavior, identify who he hangs out with who tries to converse, who gives food to another person. Wonder why they're doing that. It gives us this opportunity to identify that. But there are rules in the chow hall, and we have to hold them accountable. So what we're seeing, though, is by talking about these things, and I know there's a number of them, and if you have some other ones, I really request that you put them in the comments so we can readdress this, or we can address it through the comments. But it's really to go back and talk about these things and say why those rules exist. And if you break it all down, what I can guarantee you is it comes down to being able to establish order and structure so that when things are not orderly and things are not properly structured, we can identify them and look into them more quickly. Like I said, unfortunately in my career, I've been around some very, very terrible incidents. And when I was either involved in them personally or later on, I was able to go back and take a look at what led to them, the investigation or the after action, whatever was taking place to find out why it happened. Every single one of them started out with people allowing small things to go by unchecked. We don't sweat the small stuff. I ask you to flip that around and say to yourself, but what if I don't? Now, again, I was telling you, I've been through these different incidents and things. We've talked to just about a few of the small examples of how not sweating the small stuff can lead to big stuff. I want to take this angle. Let's just say, for instance, you're in an area and you determine that some of the small stuff just doesn't have to be taken care of because I'm a person who worries about big stuff. Then one day things go wrong, whether it's a staff assault by an inmate on inmate fight with serious injuries. There's a major event, fire, hostage taking, whatever the case may be. And then when it's all said and done, when they all come back to take a look at it, they find out that the reason the contraband got there, the reason why the weapons were made, the reason why you didn't know what was going on, a rape in a cell, another reason why we don't cover windows, a fight in a cell where there's serious bodily harm. And it all comes down to the fact that the little things that you were being asked to enforce were not big enough for you to sweat. So therefore you allowed them. And that allowance, as well as possibly others, led to serious injuries to either a staff member or an inmate. You don't want that feeling. You don't want that feeling. So what you do the right thing. You sweat the small stuff. And when people tell you we don't sweat the small stuff, just raise your hand and say, well, I do. And do your thing. Be you. Make sure that you're out there safeguarding your fellow staff members, safeguarding the inmates who have been entrusted in your care. Make sure that you are doing those small things to make sure that big things don't happen. I highly encourage you, go look up major incidents, and you will see in the investigation it came down to people not following proper procedures, or they were allowing small things to go by, and it led to something extremely catastrophic. And when you start doing the small stuff, you're going to find, one, your reputation goes up because everybody knows that you're a person that does their job. Second thing that's going to happen for you, you're going to feel good about yourself. And I'm going to tell you something you might not believe, but the inmate population is going to be glad that you work there because they know when you come in, you establish a safe, secure, and orderly living space for them, or a place for them to work, or a place for them to move around the facility. So please, I ask you, consider what we've talked about today. Add things to the comments. Our channel, now let's talk about it. Corrections Unfiltered. You know, it's me and a few of my buddies have decided we want to kind of get out there. Now we're starting to branch out of our echo chamber. We're starting to talk to some other people with great ideas or great things going on. We're really excited about doing that. So please subscribe to us because that gives us, you know, the things that we need to start coordinating with other people. And please let us know what subjects you would like. Please hit the like button if you like it. If you don't like it, tell us why you don't like it. We're trying to get better, and we want to be able to take this channel where you want it to go, where we want it to go, and who knows where it's going to go. But it's going to be exciting the entire way, I promise you. So thank you once again for subscribing. Thank you for once again for looking at this. Thank you for the comments I hope that you put in there and let us know which direction we're going. So for Pete Bludworth on Corrections Unfiltered, I want to say thank you. We'll see you next time.